In this video, I want to cover kind of the tools and resources that you're going to need to be successful for the spring 2021 semester of Advanced JavaScript. So the Advanced JavaScript class that you're in is 100% online. You can do it all asynchronously. And what I'd like to suggest is that I am actually teaching another section of this class on Monday nights. Those Monday night classes will meet each Monday through, I believe it's May 12th. And inside of the Slack workspace for this class, I've provided a link to those meeting details. And firstly, I want to invite you all to attend those live meetings if you're at all struggling or have any questions or concerns or anything like that. So you're certainly welcome to come to that class. Okay, so in order to be successful in this class, we're going to need a couple of tools that where information is going to be posted, and I want to make sure that you kind of are familiar with those tools. So the first tool that we're going to look at is Blackboard, and I'm logged into Blackboard right now, and I'm in specifically this section, so the Advanced JavaScript Online section for Spring 2021. And I just want to kind of go through the details of how I'm going to use Blackboard for this course. Okay, so first of all, we have the announcement section, and I'll use the announcement section to send out weekly announcements. So even though this class is 100% asynchronous and you can do it completely remote, there is a timeline and a schedule for the class. So the announcements I'll use kind of weekly, and I'll send out a reminder saying these are the things that you need to complete for the week to kind of stay on task with the semester. So that's typically how I'll use announcements. They'll show up in the announcement section of Blackboard. They'll also show up in an announcement section of Slack for each week. And then when I post an announcement in Blackboard, I'll typically broadcast email it to all of the students in the class. So you'll also be getting an email announcement if you are monitoring your email. Okay, so that's how I'll use announcements. And then just kind of going down this left-hand navigation section. So my contact information is here. So I have my email address, my phone number. We're virtual for the spring 2021 semester, and then office hours are by appointment. One thing I want to point out with the office hours by appointment, each week you're going to have a check-in. Okay, and I'm going to kind of skip ahead here, so I'm going to skip off of contacts. I'm going to skip ahead down to week 1. Each week you're going to have a weekly check-in in the due folder. So in here there'll be a weekly check-in. And the idea with that weekly check-in will be, how are things going? What are you working on? Are you encountering any issues? And do we need to meet? And what I would suggest is that weekly check-in's great for kind of non-urgent matters, like maybe you're thinking about doing a program switch and you don't need my immediate attention. Maybe you just want to have a conversation with me about changing programs. That's a perfect spot to do that in that weekly check-in. However, if you have a need to urgently meet, so for instance, maybe we have an exam due date and you're going to miss the exam due date because, a relative is sick or something else. So you have an urgent concern. What I would suggest is Slack is kind of the quickest and easiest way to get a hold of me and to kind of get immediate contact with me. So feel free to message me through Slack. Okay. So my contact details are here, but again, feel free to reach out through Slack. It's immediate and that works well. Going on to the syllabus, we have the syllabus for spring 2021. Okay, so this is an advanced JavaScript class. The textbook, I have a textbook here. It's a free textbook, and the feedback that I've gotten in past semesters is the textbook's not great. I think the textbook is good. I don't know that it's necessarily a textbook that you can sit down and read chapter by chapter and understand, so I would suggest that you don't necessarily need to purchase the textbook. Okay, so I might avoid that. A lot of the reading material for the class is online articles, online tutorials that you'll see when we get to the weekly details. So my suggestion is to use the O'Reilly for Higher Education account and read an online copy of the book if you want to do that. I would maybe avoid purchasing the book. Other details that we're going to care about. There's a class schedule. Okay, so each week we'll kind of be covering new topics. The idea is that we're going to learn how to develop JavaScript applications without using frameworks. So really what we're talking about for this class is it's an ES6 class. It's modern JavaScript. Okay, and how do we use modern JavaScript? So that's what the class focuses on. And you'll see kind of a rough outline week by week, what are the topics covered. You'll see week 8 is the midterm exam, and then week 16 is the final exam. However, kind of the week-to-week details are going to be laid out in these weekly folders. Okay, so in Module 1, we're covering ES6. That's going to be weeks 1 through 5. And each week is going to have a collection of things that you should be reading, a collection of things that you should be watching, and then what is your homework? So that could be labs, it could be check-ins, it could be projects. Okay, that's the idea. And I'm just going back to the syllabus here for a second. So we have that kind of rough outline, but then there will be additional detail and clarification in each of the weekly folders. As far as attendance, obviously since we're kind of in this weird year, weird semester, I don't require attendance, but I do require you to check in each week. How are things going? What work are you doing? So really, that's kind of my variation on attendance, is that weekly check-in. Okay, campus closures are not going to affect us. Okay, homework, late assignments, and then I want to get down to how we're actually calculating the grade for this class. Okay, so you'll see that I have included 10 labs at 5 points each, so 50 points total. There's weekly check-ins, so we don't check in during the midterm and the final. And then there's 2 other weeks where we don't have check-ins. I have you do it through Slack. Those are worth 36 points, so 3 points each week. There's 4 projects that are kind of bigger units of work. So just to kind of clarify what's the difference between labs and projects. Labs are meant to be kind of quick and easy reviews of the weekly material. And what I mean by that is, let's say week 1 we cover variables. There would typically be a lab that would cover how do you use variables. Whereas the project, you can't do much by just creating variables. The project would maybe incorporate kind of a multiple weeks worth of kind of material. So you might be using variables, you might be using constants, you might be using dynamic HTML to create a project. So kind of a bigger unit of work that spans multiple weeks is the idea with the projects. And then there's 2 exams, a midterm and a final. So you arrive at 286 points. I have 286 points here. It could be plus or minus. So I think I have 12 labs scheduled, and last semester we got through 10. That's why I'm showing 10. But it could certainly be up to 12. And then alternatively, it could be down to 8, I think was the lowest number of labs that we've ever had in a semester. So give or take 10 points or so, but we'll still be grading on kind of that point total and the percentage of the point total. Okay, and then we have the grading calculations based on the grading scales. Okay, that's how you're going to receive a grade for this class. Okay, so as I've already said, each week you're going to be getting information about what you should read, what you should watch, and then what you should do. And typically, I guess there's not a typical week in terms of how much reading and how much watching and how much doing. So in the syllabus, I listed 6 hours there. That's going to vary. Some weeks it'll be a heavier week, and other weeks it'll be a lighter week. Same with the things that you're doing. So if you have kind of that bigger unit of work, a project that's due that week, you may be spending more time on this class than other weeks, but that's kind of the flow of the class. Okay. After the syllabus, we get into the course details. The course details has the semester assignment calendar. So the first thing that you're going to encounter is you're going to have a lab that's due on the 27th. Okay, you'll see you have a little bit of time before that first project is due, and the idea there is I want to cover some material so you have some background in terms of what we're actually doing in this class. So we have about a month, a little over a month before that first project is due. And we'll be covering new material kind of right up to that due date. And then you'll also have a check-in that's due on the 27th. Okay, so week 1 we'll have a weekly check-in. Basically, it's a quiz basically saying how are things going. Okay, so those are the things that you'll have to complete. The assignment calendar is under course details. Okay, so Blackboard is kind of the first main tool that you're going to end up using for this class. The other main tool that you're going to be using, and I sent this out in my initial announcement, is the Slack workspace. So I'm going to jump over to, I guess I don't have Slack up. I'm going to open up Slack, and I'm going to go into the Slack workspace. So I believe we are in the Madison College Spring 2021 Advanced JavaScript Online. And we have our Slack workspace here. It looks like most of you have already joined the workspace. And the idea here is that I'll have weekly channels. So I'll have a week 1 channel, and the idea there is that students can interact with one another saying, you know, I'm stuck here on this part of the first lab, or you can use the random thread. You all hopefully got the welcome message, and I already mentioned the welcome message includes that online live section that we'll have on Monday nights, and you're welcome to attend that as well. Okay, so basically Slack is going to be our collaboration tool for this semester. And it looks like most of you have already joined. One thing I will say about Slack is that I am managing, it looks like 5 courses total. I don't want to see a message and then click off of it if I didn't respond right away. So what I end up doing is going into the threads or all of my direct mentions. So what I would suggest is if you don't want me to kind of ignore you, and believe me, I'm not ignoring you, but I don't necessarily go into the general channel unless I'm mentioned in the general channel. So if you want to directly message me, I'm certainly fine with that. So you can just use the @ sign, and then you can select me and write me a message if you are expecting a response from me. If it's a general message for the entire class, then you don't have to do that. But if you're directing a message at me, please tag me. Okay? Otherwise, sometimes I'll see your message and I'll click away for a second, and then I kind of forget where it was, and I don't want to do that to you. I don't want you to think that I'm not responding to you. So it's just an easier thing for me to manage if you message me directly. Okay, I know some people say, you know, that's kind of bad Slack etiquette. I don't care. Okay, it's easier for me to manage. Okay, so those are the 2 main tools that we're going to be using for the semester. The last tool that I'll suggest that we want for the semester, the tool that I use the most, is Atom. So I use Atom all the time. Let me bring up a new file. I use Atom all the time, and Atom is my preferred text editor. So there's 2 very good choices for text editors for this class. So Visual Studio Code is kind of that first tool that you might use, and the other is Atom. And like I said, I use Atom, and there's certain plugins that I use with Atom, but there's typically equivalent plugins in Visual Studio Code, but I would be using one of those 2 editors for this class. Those are the main tools we're going to need for the semester, and as long as you have those tools, then you should be set to go with week 1.